it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if as soon as we entered into a school, it was a loving and truthful environment in which our teachers, quote-unquote, these people who love patting themselves on the back as if they're really doing anything, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if these people really educated us in the mystery of life? Hell no. So what do we have to do? We got to wait till our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, so we pick up the slack on our own and try desperately to, spring clean all the garbage that this world and this society and our neighbors and our parents and our priests and our politicians have been dumping into our consciousness. The greatest philosophers of the world have despaired against it. What is the average person, going to do? Especially the ones who are totally ignorant, who don't even know that this is happening. So yes, it's an awesome, endless thing, but it's necessary because psychic hygiene, the word sanity and the word sanitize are connected for a reason. There is a reason why the word sanity and the word sanitize, are coming from the same word root. And I'll tell you what the reason is because it's understood that to be sane, you have to be psychically hygienic. However, as I say on all my work, we clean our beds, we clean our clothes, we clean the yard, we wash our cars, we wash our bodies, we shower. We would never dream of eating off the same dirty plates twice in a single day. Why then is the emotions never cleaned? Everything in our life is cleaned. Yet the emotions, the psyche, which is the foundation of our whole being, is toxic, full of all sorts of debris. All sorts of debris. It goes on, it's not just big crimes and immoral people, even moral people. It's just a natural build-up. There's nothing wrong with it. Dirt collects on anything. You can't scream and say, oh my God, I wish dust didn't, gather on my table. I wish fruit didn't rot or cars didn't rust. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying blame nature. I'm just saying this phenomena happens. So then you have to have the detergent and the ways to go around and clean it. It's very simple. Like we said at the beginning of the show. The remedies are very easy. It's just you have to know that you now need to apply them.
Well, the truth is definitely a good thing. I mean, It's like I remember when I first got turned on to your work a few years ago, and I was jaw-dropped. It was
right.
Just, the moment I think it's like, wow, I'm so close to figuring something out, and then it's like, oh, wait a second. There's 300 different aspects of looking at it now, and it's like between your work and Jordan Maxwell and David Icke, I'm just sitting there. I could spend the next 3-4 lifetimes just looking through your three people's researches, and
right.
Man.
Well, that's true.
It's incredible, but it's that in itself just being opened up to the truth, and I personally, you feel it when you do read it. When you feel something that is true, it is, and just the way of looking at things anymore is such an eye opener, and it's so. That is cleansing in itself for me, as far as I'm concerned. It feels so much better being awake than it does being closed up, but it's still worrisome in its times.
Well, and it should be. The worry is also a very healthy thing. If a storm comes, say you've been planting an orchard, or you've been planting a beautiful field of crops, and suddenly you're woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning because you can hear the gale coming, which is going to tear up all your young saplings. Aren't you immediately in panic? Aren't you immediately in fear? There's a certain kind of fear that is a byproduct of defensiveness. It's important to be in awareness and to be alarmed by this, because this is our life. This is what's happening to the human race. The beauty, the good in the world is being raped, being mutilated. One should feel, angry about that. We have a whole cult in the New Age movement that tells you to not be angry. This is another fabrication, and I know who's funding the New Age movement, so I'm not surprised that they've seeded all of these lies. But the fact of the matter is that there is a healthy anger. Didn't Christ say, I've come with a sword to divide people so that individuals stand on their own? So we need to be aware that there's a tremendous crime that is taking place, and our reaction towards that crime needs to be urgent. You don't stand outside your house and watch your house burning down, a fire starting in your house, and then say, well, look, I got to go to the shops, but when I come back, I'll get some water and put the fire out. You immediately act. You immediately go and try to save your property. Well, this is the kind of reaction. So, yes, you're right. When people like yourself and myself and other people in the world come across this alternative type of information, it's an ambivalent response. We're tremendously elated and ecstatic that we now have our hands on the treasure, the Count of Monte Cristo's treasure, the gold of truth. We're terribly grateful to be in front of that shrine and to be one of the few people, you see, that have come to the altar of the truth. But at the same time, there's intense depression, sadness, misery. We have our heads in our hands, and so we should. We should be in lament. The Celtic people used to play the ancient harp, where they play these laments. Their music is considered even to this day to be extremely melancholic. Damn right, because they know that truth is not wanted in the world, and that the lover will be raped and poisoned, that the saints will be martyred, that the poor will be trodden on. Damn right.
Talk about a country that's been raped. I mean, wow. You know,
right.
Ireland for centuries.
That's
centuries over centuries. It's a, you know, an amazing history, which well, I'd like to get into a little bit with you also, if we could, because
sure.
Wow, your work on the origins of civilization through Ireland are, you know, absolutely amazing, and you know, another just a brilliant eye opener, and another way of looking at things through history, and you know, what a great guide.
Isn't it? You see, we have so many conspiracies, and I don't fear to ever use that word, because that's what they are. They're conspiracies against truth that happen on many levels. Life is not just made from, you know, one particular facet. So we have a social aspect, we have a psychological aspect, we have a religious aspect to life, all of these different threads that make up the great web of life. And on a historical level, there's been just incredible crimes that have been perpetrated, but the truth is only slowly coming out. This whole thing about the Roman conquest of Ireland and the rape of Ireland, and the fact that the Pope and the Vatican prevented anybody from traveling, you see, telling you that the world was flat and you'd fall off the edge of the world because they were desperate, that people would never travel to the West. They didn't want people to travel to England and Ireland to find out the high cultures that existed there. The burnings of the great libraries that they then tell you are these libraries in Alexandria and these libraries all over the world. The one thing they don't tell you is that these were Celtic libraries that were run by the Druids, that the Druids were an international organization. The clever scholars came along and tried to put different terms like Phoenician and Philistine and all of these different terms to cover up the truth. But even the truth, as you're referring to on my website, that even the word Jew, the word Judaic, actually referred to the Druidic order. It had nothing to do with the Jews that use that word today. Unfortunately, most Jewish people, like most Christians, are not at all aware of their own heritage. I'm not pointing any fingers. It's not they're consciously ignorant. It's just that this is the way it is. They've been duped themselves. There's not a Jew to this day who can tell you why it is that the Pope wears the yarmulke. There's very few Catholics today who can tell you anything about Judaism. Yet they'll always tell you they don't like it, or they hate it, or this person, they can certainly tell you all the problems they've got amongst each other, but none of them can tell you a damn thing about where these things came from. But and the language gives it away. You know, my work on the Irish origins of civilization is a work that has been carried on again by American scholars. I'm just following in the footsteps of Barry Fell, Commons Beaumont, Conor McDowry, Anna Wilkes. Again, books that have been suppressed, books that are very hard to find, information that's very difficult to find. The whole of America has Celtic ruins that the fake scholars from Princeton and Cornell and from the Smithsonian Institute have been desperately trying to tell people are Native American Indians, even when the Native American Indians are going, no, they're not. They're not ours. You go to any of the Native American Indian groups where these great mounds, like the Ohio Mound is, or where the Anasazi Indians were meant to be, and all the local Indians tell you it is not our work. We did not do this. But we'll tell you who did. They're not even trying to conceal it. The Indians say it's the blonde ones from overseas. It's the men who had the blue eyes, and either the blonde hair or the black hair, but they were tall in stature, right? They had blue eyes, fair complexion, and they were from across the seas. They're the ancestors. They did it. Native American Indians have never hidden that. They're happy to admit it. But the Smithsonian people, they'll not admit it. The Masonic-controlled university top scholars and fake historians, they'll never tell you this. But as Glenn Kimball, you see, and Barry Fell and other scholars in this country have revealed, and as Commons Beaumont and especially Conor McDowry, who my work very much follows on from, and Augustus Laplangion, who studied the Maya records in the ancient times in the 19th century, these individuals knew that there was commerce between the old world and the new world, and that America was colonized originally hundreds and hundreds of years before Columbus or the Vikings got here. The Celtic people were here because they were the Phoenicians. the greatest maritimers and the greatest traders and the greatest people in the world. Because the word Phoenician comes from an Irish word, the Fenians or the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians are the builders of Newgrange in Ireland. And just they cunningly, later scholars just cunningly changed the terms, changed the phrases. But the second major city of the Phoenician peoples, right, in the Middle East was called Tyre, T-Y-R-E. That is a corruption of the word Tara in Ireland. The capital city of the Phoenicians is the same name as the capital city of the Druids in Ireland, Tara or Tyra or Tara. It doesn't matter what way you pronounce it, or you just take away a letter or add a letter. This kind of stuff was done.
Wow.
To disguise all sorts of things, so that people would never find out. They just want you to believe that the Druids were some sort of maniacs living in Ireland and nobody bothered with them, some little Arthurian thing going on over there in England and Ireland, nothing to be, paying any attention to really. A little bit mythology, a little bit of fairy folk tales. What nonsense.
The perpetual lie to keep the people dumbed down from the true information and the knowledge of life.
That's right. The Celtic people were like what the Brahmins are today. Brahmins today are accepted as being a great priestly class, you see, and everyone looks to the Brahmins in India and goes, oh my goodness, they're so holy, and they are holy. They're vegetarians, they have a tremendous knowledge of the stars, they live an extremely pure life, everything from the cooking of the food to the way they walk, insects, they won't even kill an insect, you see. They have a tremendous language, which is Sanskrit, of course, and then Urdu for the
are they affiliated with the Jains?
The Jains are a sect of the Brahmins.
Okay.
So everyone will look to them and go, oh, I see, yes, we can accept that the whole of India looks up to and is understanding that there's a Brahmin supreme class there. Well, hang on. I'm just saying exactly the same thing about the Celts. The Brahmins learned it all from the Celts. Sanskrit's closest ancestor language is Gaelic. And the scholars who really know that Sanskrit is not the parent language, but the Gaelic is. This is accepted. The Chinese language Ainu, which is one of the oldest languages in the world. Look it up online in a dictionary or go to Wikipedia and put in the word Ainu, A-I-N-U. It's a Japanese, one of the oldest languages in the world, and it will tell you in any reference work that the language to which Ainu language is closest is Gaelic.
Wow.
Just pick up Graham Hancock's book, Talisman, or pick up any of the Graham Hancock books like Underworld. Scholars like him are now finding this out that was known at the turn of the century by other scholars, but unfortunately their books were suppressed. Gaelic was the parent language. Gaelic means that. Gael is the white ones, the pure ones, the noble ones. In India, Ireland, England, Britain is known as Britistania, right? Britistana, which meant, in Indian, the land of the teachers, the land of the greatest masters. That's Ireland and Britain were known, but even in India, as Britistana, which was known as the place of the great teachers. So just like we see the Brahmins today, or just like we would imagine your shaman in Native American Indian, there was a worldwide movement of colleges that existed that were run by the Druids. They sent their Druid leaders over there. It is well known to anyone who has read on Greek, ancient, what they call pre-Grecian philosophy, especially at the time of Pythagoras. It is a absolutely irrefutable fact that the school of Pythagoras was created by the Druids. This is officially known now. This is not just me saying this. This is absolutely officially known that a Druid by the name of Abaris, A-B-A-R-I-S, Abaris, visited Greece and basically patronized the school of Pythagoras. Because in the Pythagoreans' own words, in the Greek, they say it was a Celtic Druid who appeared with a gigantic bow. He had ridden across Europe on a horse. They say he stood out because he wore long trousers. He was of great stature, and he had a bow. Because all the Celtic people, they say, were great bowmen. Just like you've seen in Lord of the Rings. Recently, that movie shows you the Celts, the men of the West, were fantastic. The bow was one of their powerful symbols. And this individual was also a master of mathematics, and a master of astrology and astronomy and all sorts of flora and fauna. And in the Pythagoreans' own words, they created their schools based on the teachings of the Druids. Now, if it can be admitted that the most advanced Grecian teacher, Pythagoras, is basically an offshoot of the Druids, then there's your answer. That the Hellenes and the Grecians and the Romans are dependent. Now, when the Roman tyrants rose and created their armies to go out, they made a beeline for Europe. They made a beeline for Britain. Because, you see, they knew that the new power structure cannot rise in the world without the destruction of the old one, which is based on spirituality and the worship of the stars and the worship of the heavens and all of this. So my work is to show that through the Romans, which is now the Vatican, through the great empires of the Habsburgs, and these old dynasties that were corrupt in their core, they had to come and annihilate all the Druids, and they did it. They wiped them out, every one to a man, because they needed that tradition to be destroyed, and all the libraries to be burned, and all the knowledge to be appropriated, in order for this thing we now call Judeo-Christianity, this obscenity, to rise in the world, because it wasn't going to rise any other way. You know, you couldn't have the two forces ruling in the world. So there was a campaign of genocide, not only to wipe out the Druids, but subsequently then to suppress the role of the Irish. And the Irish is not the way it is spelt. Irish is not with an I, it was with an A. A-R-I-S-H. From the word root Ari, or Arian. That's where the word really comes from. The Aryans. And the Aryans have got nothing to do also with what we've been told the Aryans have been about. 99% of the people who write on the Aryans are completely misinformed, or they're blatant liars. And it certainly has nothing to do with what Nazi Germany was talking about. It didn't have to do with ethnicity, and it didn't really have to do with race. The word Arya originally meant the ones of noble birth, the ones who worship the heavens, the sun worshippers, the keepers of light. That's what it was. So Ireland was the place that was the land of the Ari. And anyone who's done 5 minutes of homework, let alone anyone who's come to my website or to Jordan Maxwell, or has read any decent books on the history of words, will know what A-R-I meant, or A-R-Y, or A-R-Y-A, which is in India, the Arya got to India. And they say the Aryan invasions of India are legendary, well known. Well, go and ask an Indian person about the visitors, the Arya, and they'll tell you the same thing, that the Arya are the people who composed the Rig Veda, the finest written poems in the world. The greatest, the Puranas, the Vedas, the Shastras, right? The Rig Veda, the greatest poems to divinity, the greatest poems to woman, the greatest poems about their animals. All Indians know the Arya wrote those, because they were the most sophisticated, linguistically advanced people in the world. But guess what? The Arya, or the Irish, are the Celtic race that was worldwide after the cataclysms. They weren't just living in Ireland. The purest of them got to Ireland because Ireland was a remnant of old, you know, when Atlantis fell, Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, of course. So the survivors did get to Ireland and England first, whatever survivors there were, and there wasn't many. People can read my book on Atlantis to find all this out. When the great continents like Atlantis did sink, it was to Ireland and England that most of the original survivors arrived. However, not all the Atlanteans arrived on Ireland. They had, during the cataclysms, they were, you know, dispersed to all corners of the world. So you had groups of these Atlantean Lemurians at all parts of the world, all looking for each other. Each group wondering if any of the other groups survived. It would be the same thing today. It's like when that tsunami hit there in Indonesia recently. My God, a small pocket of people that are lost, you know, in a forest or swept away by the waves. You're going to wonder if anybody else is alive, right? Well, it's the same thing in those great times of cataclysms and pole shifts. So it took many millennia for these individuals to coalesce again, and really it didn't really happen. Most of them never got the chance to coalesce again, so what they did was that they set up bases in India, in China, in Japan, in the steppes of Russia, in Norway, in Sweden, in Ireland, you see, and over in South America and in North America as well, because these Lemurians and these Atlanteans had been dispersed to the four corners. It just so happened that on Ireland, a very, very high and pure group, you know, were situated, and therefore all the countries of the world looked to Ireland for that purpose.
Very interesting.
Yeah, the thing is unbelievable when you get into it. It's just incredible.
That's crazy. Well, let's take a short break so we can have some of our listeners who want to record this. They can make it on CD that way, and we'll come back and talk more about the origins of civilization in Ireland.
Sounds good.
More of this 2012 alignment. Maybe take a few questions from some emails I got. And, yeah, we'll get right back to you, though. Thanks for staying tuned to us, and we'll catch you on the flip side of this.